Hello everyone and welcome back to Let's Talk Kashrus, presented by the Kashrus Awareness Project in conjunction with Torah Anytime. Today we are privileged to be joined by Rabbi Tzvi Rosen, Kashrus Administrator at the Star K in Baltimore and longtime editor of the Star K's Kashrus Currents. Thank you, Rabbi Rosen, for coming out all the way from Baltimore to our Let's Talk Kashrus studios here.
Thank you for having me.
And really, before we get into today's conversation, congratulations on a long and successful career in the field of kashrus, and specifically the Kashrus Currents, which you've been doing for decades. I speak, I'm sure, on behalf of many people who have benefited from the beautiful articles that you write, so clearly presented on very important kashrus topics. So thank you for your vital contributions to the world of kashrus.
Well, it's my pleasure. We've enjoyed doing it.
Okay, I'll weiter for many more years. Amen. Today we'd like to discuss the topic of Cholov Yisroel, and perhaps you could give us a little overview of what it takes to set up a proper facility or setting where someone who desires to have a Cholov Yisroel certification, what they would do.
Okay, as I came into the Star K, which was already 33 years ago, there was at this particular farm, and we basically had to, and I, as an administrator, had to, jump in. We started with having to get full-time supervision, and basically have the state-of-the-art carousel that can milk at one time a carousel it's like a merry-go-round. It's about 54 cows at one time. When I say about setting up a Cholov Yisroel operation, one thing that is a constant, you need cows. One thing which was not constant, which we have right now at this stage of milking, we have hashgacha 24/7. We have a very modern trailer. It has 2 separate bedrooms, and basically mashgichim have come in from Baltimore, which is a change. We used to have a mashgiach who would live there, full time. We have Shabbos mashgichim. We have a Yom Tov mashgichim. We have Yom Noroi mashgichim.
Meaning, literally on the Yom Noroi, someone's there.
Yes.
And
Yes.
because they're doing milking at all these different
because
times.
as to set up a real, a real Cholov Yisroel operation without compromise, because once you would go off of the hashgacha, and the hashgacha, obviously cows do not take vacations. There's chalivos 3 times a day. Mm-hmm. The chalivos
every day of the year?
Every day of the year, 3 times a day. For quite a bit of time. This is not a small farm. It's between 1,500 and 1,700 that's being milked at one time. Mm-hmm. They have 5,000 in the total population of the farm. Okay. Now, that means that if, let's say, we would go off of the Cholov Yisroel chalivos, then the milk would have to either be segregated, and you'd have to start worrying about the holding tanks. You'd have to go ahead and start to see what's going to happen. You don't want to have quote unquote a contamination.
Right.
So what we have developed as being state of the art is that we have total hashgacha, from beginning to end. And once we have mashgichim there, the mashgichim have to report to the administrators. Nowadays, he has GPS systems on all the mashgichim. So he can actually monitor where the mashgiach is. Aside from the mashgiach sending us reports, we have reports on basically 3 times a chaliva of when the mashgiach will go ahead and submit reports to see that, and he has what we will call, let's take the what we do now in order to ensure a Cholov Yisroel that is, on the shufra de shufra, the best of the best. Mm-hmm. First of all, we have in the parlor, the mashgiach has to be there for hascholas hachaliva. Hascholas hachaliva really means that in the case of we start after a milking is completed, everything is totally washed down. You don't want to have any bacteria. And in the milking carousel that they would have, you would see there are lines that they would go through from each cow would have their own, if you will, little port where you see the milk coming in. It will go through a main line, then it goes into a chiller. The chiller chills the thing so that the milk down so that the milk will stay super fresh. Then it will go into one of 3 holding tanks. So in there that they'll have heat, there's a monitoring of levels on the holding tank. There's a monitoring of the lines, and therefore we know we're starting at the beginning of the chaliva. The mashgiach is able to, at one time, be able to see hundreds of cows, because the cows basically, just like the mashgiach lives next door to the milking parlor, the 5 herds or the 5 units of cows that are going to be milked are also on the other side. They're shchenim. And they will go ahead, and each time each unit will come in, the mashgiach is able to go ahead and to eyeball basically hundreds of cows at one time. Now,
to make sure that
they say you see all the cows that are in the chaliva. But we go ahead and have the mashgiach who goes ahead, hascholas ha-chaliva, he'll see milk levels, he will go ahead and go throughout the chaliva to see that everything.
So three times a day he has to be there for the beginning of the milking?
And throughout. And
how long does he have to, is he yotzev v'nichnas during the milking?
Throughout the chaliva, we would have a mashgiach who's there, let's say every, between an hour and a half, he has to go in, and go ahead and see that everything is status quo. And it's basically he's able to eyeball the whole herd.
Now, what's he really looking for? Is he just making sure that the only animals being milked are cows?
Yes, but that's in fact, this is...
Is that an oversimplification?
It is, but it's sacrosanct that in these dairy farms that there's only dairy cows there.
Okay.
There's nothing there.
What other concerns would there be?
That wouldn't be. I mean, the only other time is, as I say, have the Amish. And I've had opportunity to go ahead and see the Amish, because they only have one barn, so they can have a horse there. But by us, it's only dairy cows, and that's in most the biggest difference. I think that as far as us and being able to eyeball and to see that there are cows is because you have a carousel system that you're able to see many more cows than you would if you have straight stalls. Because a straight stall would be that you would have, even if for a large dairy, let's say you have 25 stalls, then that which is extremely large. But most of them would, let's say, small, 10 and 10, even 6 and 6. But you only see that many cows there that they come in, they go out, and then you have to get the next herd. This already, the way that the carousel works, as you see that the way that there is a work in concert, that each cow comes in and each cow goes Osa Shalom Bimromav and it finishes out and goes back, gets himself you scratch my back, they have a whole scratcher, then he relax, it's everything. Very happy cow. This is a very important thing that the viewership should know. If, let's say, there was going to be some sort of a dietary mishap, and the cow's cava will flip. It displaces what that's called a DA, a displaced abomasum. The milker will see that cow does not give milk. Something's wrong with the cow. So there are different ways of being able to correct. You can correct it naturally. You can correct it invasively. There's different ways of invasive correction. The shaylas are, if you do puncture the cava, then it's a shayla and treifa.
Treifa, right. And this was something that came up some years ago, right?
Yes, it came up in 1994 when, I guess, this problem hit the fan.
I remember that.
And now, in order to set up a really state-of-the-art, Cholov Yisroel, we sell off. We don't do any operations. Once a cow would be diagnosed with a DA, it has to be sold. You're talking about setting up a state-of-the-art Cholov Yisroel operation. We also need to make sure that the milk is being traced properly.
Meaning, what does that mean in layman's terms?
Okay, in layman's terms, the milk is now sitting in holding tanks. The milk then is taken in a tanker. The tanker now has to go to the bottling plant. Now, it happens to be that we have to go ahead and make sure which is one of these mathematical things. Although we have everything is 24/7, milk is judged in pounds as opposed to gallons. You know, and
Meaning
and
in
switch.
weight, not in volume?
That's correct. So that's what happens. It switches from the weight at the chaliva to gallonage at the bottling plant. So so we have to make sure that what is being delivered is accountable.
What was produced. Okay.
That is correct. So we have that. That's also part of the accountability of the conversion of going ahead and seeing it. Sometimes the bottling plant has Cholov Stam and Cholov Yisroel. In the olden days, this was actually the person who thought of this was Mordechai Unger of New Square. He has his own hechsher. He wanted to make sure that the mashgiach was going to be there at the bottling. How do you know that he's at the bottling plant? We said we have haskolas chaliva, but what about the bottling plant? So in those days, they would have the sell-by date that was a stamper that basically stamped onto the top of the gable of the carton. In those days, you had a carton, just like orange juice. So the carton. So what did he say? Look, we have a sell-by date. So let's say today is May 29th. Today is also Chaf Aleph Iyar. So what happens is that they had a block. The block had little characters. So on sell by 29th May, you would have a Chaf Aleph next to the block
For the Hebrew date.
for the Hebrew date, and that's the way that was devised in the olden days. Nowadays, that everything is computer generated, they had to write a whole program where instead of having the Hebrew characters in a block form, it's in a computerized form. So if you look at the sell-by date, you will see next to the sell-by date that's a computerized Chaf Aleph. So the mashgiach who goes ahead and he has a special lock on his program. Obviously, the person who is the operator doesn't know Lashon Kodesh. So we have the mashgiach's proprietary information of how to go ahead and to enter. So he has to be a little bit how to set up it's not just going ahead, as Rabbi Haim would have said, knowing the difference between a cow and a horse. You have to have some sort of some command of how to go ahead and to program something onto the screen. And that's the way that we monitor the mashgiach has to be there in terms of the actual bottling. Now, even in terms of what has to be in terms of the ingredients, when you will have a skim milk, the skim milk has obviously the milk fat is out. It does not have the same rich look that you would have in whole milk, which you have geschmack in your coffee. So what happens is that we add powdered milk into the skim to give it. Now, that also has to be Cholov Yisroel. It's a whole different thing. But as far as our concern, we have control at the chaliva, we have control at the milking, and we have another control which is fairly unique. This is something that your viewership should know and have. I will call some peace of mind. As we know, when you have a DA, a displaced abomasum, and the cow has an operation, the cow, after it's the surgery, and it's invasive surgery, the cow stands up immediately. It comes a couple of months. The hide will once again grow its hair.
It will heal. Right?
It will heal. They say it's a terrific milker. So how do you know when they will go ahead and you'll go ahead that maybe the mame is also a DA product because it's a healthy cow?
Because externally you can't tell.
That's correct. Now, it used to be that they say the mashgiach has come to as I say, in the Alta Yoren, that they would go amongst the cows to see did they sneak in a DA cow or not. It has something very unique. They birth the cows themselves. Those cows that are giving birth now are the children of the original, and we sell off all the DAs. And we have meticulous records that have gone for decades already that know that there's no DAs in the herd. Every cow has, believe it or not only do they have a number, they have a name, and they have a computer chip. And the computer chip really tells the whole story. It's to our advantage at this Cholov Yisroel because we have control of the chaliva, we have control of the bottling, and we have control of the yichus. So in essence, we've really had a total control of the whole operation.
Right.
But that's what it is.
It's very impressive. We thank you at this level. It's really amazing to hear how much effort and time has gone into it. So
I'm
I'm
happy to be able to go ahead. It's almost like the parah wants to give the milk. So I'm happy to be able to give it over.
Well, thank you so much. We really appreciate it. And again, thank you for coming out for this conversation.
My pleasure.